Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into geopolitical responses to conflict, sanctions and global alignment, based on the detailed source material we have.
Yeah, there's a lot here. Sanctions, shifting alliances.
Exactly. Our goal really is to unpack what the source calls a seismic shift in international diplomacy, how different countries, different blocs reacted to a major recent conflict.
And seismic feels about right. The speed and scale of some reactions were, well, pretty unprecedented according to this analysis, challenged a lot of norms.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
The source notes that NATO countries, well, they had maybe a brief hesitation, but then pivoted massively,
Right.
started sending huge support packages to Ukraine. We're talking aid, yeah, but also sophisticated weapons, intelligence support, things like javelins,
Anti-tank missiles.
HIMARS, those precision rockets, and Patriot air defense systems, really significant military stuff.
And crucially, running parallel to that military support, the West brought in what the source describes as crippling sanctions against Russia.
Crippling, yeah. And these weren't just symbolic, were they?
Not at all. They were broad, strategically targeted. Think major banks, key energy exports, um, powerful oligarchs, even high-tech sectors.
So hitting them from multiple angles.
Exactly. What's really fascinating here, I think, is how comprehensive it was. The deliberate targeting across so many critical points of the economy all at once.
And some of the specifics mentioned in the source, they really stand out. Like the SWIFT ban for certain Russian banks, that's huge in global finance, right?
Oh, massive. SWIFT is basically the main messaging network for international payments. Cutting banks off from that is a major, major move, like disconnecting part of the plumbing.
And then there was the very public seizure of assets owned by oligarchs.
Right.
Yachts, villas, things people could actually see. It made the sanctions feel less abstract.
Definitely. Plus, you had those sanctions on semiconductor exports. That's fundamental for almost all modern technology.
So a really unified economic front from the West.
Mm-hmm. And the idea wasn't just punishment, but maybe forcing a strategic rethink. The source suggests it might make other nations look hard at their own economic dependencies in future crises.
Okay, so that's the West. Pretty unified, pretty forceful. But the source also talks about, well, a different story elsewhere. What about major players like China and India?
Yeah, very different approaches. The material highlights China maintaining a position described as neutral but watched closely.
Neutral but watched closely.
Yeah.
What does that mean in practice?
Well, it seems to reflect a careful balancing act. For example, China abstained on UN votes condemning the invasion, but importantly, they also seemed wary of providing direct military aid that could trigger, secondary sanctions from the West.
Okay. And India, they have that long history of non-alignment.
India walked what the source calls a careful line. They consistently called for peace, for diplomacy, but they continued trading with Moscow, actually increased it in some areas, particularly buying discounted Russian oil. That definitely helped cushion the blow of Western sanctions on Russia's revenue.
So not a monolithic global response at all.
Not even close. If you connect these dots, like the source does, it really underscores how diverse and sometimes conflicting these national responses are, driven by specific interests, history, economic needs.
So wrapping this up then, what does this complex picture tell us about international alignments now and maybe going forward? We've got this robust, unified Western approach, big aid, tough sanctions.
Right.
And then juxtaposed with that, you have this sort of nuanced neutrality or continued engagement from major non-Western powers like China, like India.
It certainly paints a complex picture.
Yeah.
And it leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty big question to chew on, I think. How will these very different strategies, the sanctions, the aid, the careful neutrality, the continued trade, how will they keep evolving?
Yeah.
And maybe more fundamentally, how might all this reshape international relations down the road and that whole web of global economic interdependence we've built? It's definitely a situation still very much in flux.